Hi friends, how are you today? So we got another chess game for you today. We got a Smith Mora Gambit declined as white. It's quite an interesting one, but I'm really in here to say thank you to Kita, who was harassing me a few days ago about making another video. And the last video said it would be a few days, and unfortunately it has been more than a few days. Kita, thank you for harassing me about making videos. I will, of course, hopefully be better at that. Anyway, let's get to the game. To the white pieces, let's go e4 against an early riser. 2200 bullet. He's a pretty good player. We see a Sicilian. Let's play the Mora. It's one of my favorite lines. They choose to decline. We can actually choose to encourage them to accept it. They are going to do none of that. And at this point, I'm just going to take the two central pawns. Now that they've committed these two weaknesses, we get the two center pawns. I'm not going to stress. Let's go bishop d3, a little bit more reserved, right? We have the two center pawns. We don't need our pieces to climb Mount Everest. They're going to climb Mount Everest on their own. Let's go ahead and play rook e1. I don't want to go knight c3. They can force this away and get some weaknesses. How do I want to continue is the question. I could go knight c3. I think knight c3 is reasonable. I really like the move bishop f4. Just saying I have some long-term pressure, right? Just long-term pressure. I'm looking at the move e5. I really like e5. The idea is they're encouraged or incentivized to take. Otherwise, I get to take here, and I'm the one with my foot on the gas pedal on the e-file. Let's go ahead and play e5. Have a good feeling about this. Again, a lot of my chess is intuition-based, so there you have it. We can take here, which probably looks a bit crazy at first because they take, but then we take. They take, and we, I don't know, move our bishop somewhere. You know what I mean? This is a weird-looking piece. Let's go ahead and take on d6, opening up the position just a smidgen. This also gives my knight a great square to hop to e5 in the future. They take this way, which I think is great. Let's take here. They have to respond. They cannot take this yet. They take here, and now we get to play some good old-fashioned chess. But also, I want to continue to stress my opponent's position, right? I want to, make it a little bit. I want to really put my foot down and say I'm better. What am I noticing? I'm noticing this. That's an immediate problem. I am noticing that my bishop can actually apply a lot more pressure. And I'm also noticing that this is not something I want to deal with. I really like the move bishop d3. As crazy it is, their bishop is one of their best pieces. I'm going to play bishop e4. I am playing an IQP position, and I'm the one trading pieces, which is absurd. This probably is not a good move, but man, do I like it. And my opponent's giving me time to play this with tempo. They can't take. I take. And hello. Right? Like the queen and rook are all lined up with their king. They take with the knight. We take anyway. This move, I think, was overlooked by black, which is honestly a shame. Hitting me with the counterpin. That's a cool idea, too. Dang. Maybe it was overlooked by me. Chess is a hard game. Yeah. So I can take for what it's worth. I am genuinely considering taking and getting the material. It's not good. I want to revoke everything I just said and say I'm not considering that anymore. The other idea is saying, okay, you can take twice here. I still have a pin. I am going to can go queen b3. I can also go knight c3, and when they push, I then have a really wacky idea with queen a4 pinning their knight. They can take, but then I'll take. Right? Let's go ahead and play knight c3 defending. I think that's a very healthy approach to playing a position like this, right? Developing. And as long as you calculate something that looks reasonable, that's pretty good, right? Like, obviously, b4, and there's two pieces hanging to pawns, and I'm not going to move mine. Queen a4 is what I have on pre, so they go for this, which is, I mean, probably the most reasonable looking move there is. If there was ever a reasonable looking move, that's it. right there. Let's go ahead and play the move queen b3 because I'm getting out of the pin. Queen a4. Yeah, this is to be expected, right? Can I go here and say, hey, let's trade queens? I do not have enough defenders on this pawn, which is the unfortunate part of this position. I might just be losing this pawn. It's hard to say. I'm going to play queen c2 with the idea that now I lined up here, right? Like, again, everything is with tempo. This game is way too complex for me to understand. But this pawn is hard to defend. In fact, it's so hard to defend, I can't do it. But what I'm doing is I'm defending it not by defending it by more pieces or removing defenders. I'm defending it by making stronger threats. And now that the pawn has been so weakened, right? Like now that it's finally like, ugh, I've had enough. It's had enough. The pawn's had enough. We got rid of it. In fact, we're gonna keep getting rid of it. I really just want to trade pieces. There's more pressure on this knight now. There it goes. But like, man, all the pressure in that position led to a really difficult position for me personally that I was struggling to play with a level of competence. By trading off all these pieces and pawns, I feel like I've got a better position. Let's go ahead and recapture this with the knight. All right. They might decline the queen trade, but I think they are on the best square for their queen though. So I don't see where else their queen could go to decline. They could go knight c6 to decline the queen trade, but okay. Let's go ahead and do I want to take control over the d file? I do. I have a good feeling about the d file. I have a really good feeling about it. Let's go ahead and play rook a1. Like, my pieces are, no matter how small it is, my pieces are very marginally better. I am going to take. This was, of course, the plan. And, I mean, to hell with it. I'm going to play rook d1. I mean, this is not rocket science, right? Like, we have the d file, we have the e file. Gotta be a little bit careful, but both things are good. Now, you may say, oh, they moved the knight. We take here. That's a problem. Because I have some back rank issues to solve, potentially. But my knight doesn't have a job yet. And because it doesn't have a job, we're going to give our knight a job. Now, what's the point? Then the point is now is that the knight is pinned. We have a check. It's a pretty good reason. Now, they can pin my knight. But, again, whole position is just a little bit chaotic. Now, if I go b3, what is my opponent's idea? I don't know. I actually don't know, and that's not good. I can pin their knight. It looks interesting. A little bit suspicious. I can bring more of my pieces to the party, which I don't like that. I can bring more of my pieces to the party. I kind of like it. I could also just say, hey, you know what? I don't have any room for my king. Let's go ahead and make some room. Now, normally I would say if you can go h3, you should go h4. This is definitely the time where I do not want to go h4. They attacked this, and this is missed, overlooked. Did I overlook something? I don't think so. Like if they go here, I can take the queen, they take the queen, and I feel better about my position. I guess this is like keeping my knight out of the game. We are going to trade queens. I think it's the best decision for me. Oh. Oh, that's a really cool idea. They're stopping my knight from escaping to some degree. I have to go knight a7 to save my knight, so we're going to go knight a7 because it saves our knight. That was a really nice idea to take with a knight. I didn't really consider it. Oh boy. Am I worse in this knight endgame? I think I probably am. Okay. I'm not really looking to take the knight. I'm more looking to potentially outpost on e3 and keep their pieces immobile. But, I mean, if I were them, I'd probably do what I can to go for the rook trade. And, yeah, I mean, my knights are just worse in this endgame. That's all there is. Let's go ahead and play one more sneaky move. What's the point of this? Marshal will have a small trick in the position we want to go knight d7, force their king away, and then win the rook for free. Of course, we lose the second pawn, but yeah, winning a rook's pretty good. Did I miss something? This is a shame if they miss this. Like, dang, they just missed it. They missed my threat entirely. Wow, that's a shame. Honestly, that's I feel bad for them. Like, I don't like winning games like this. I want to play good games. I expected my opponent to respond and for the game to go on. Uh, I did this not because I wanted the trap to work, but because it's the only move that means that, keeps the rooks on the board and stops them from winning my pawn. I was genuinely expecting a move like, I don't know, even f6 here, saying, "Yeah, go for it, buddy. I'm gonna play king f7." Um, and then I would have snagged the rook. They would have taken, and then I was gonna go for a move like knight c5, saying, "You take my pawn, I'll take your pawn, and play more chess." And I'll be down a pawn in a knight endgame, right? But to miss the tactic entirely is a shame because it means the game ends. And I wanted to play more of this endgame. Even though I was worse, there was still game to be had. I think that's something that a lot of people don't enjoy. And even if I were my opponent here, like, I mean, unfortunately, after this, you're just down the rook, and this is a good spot to resign. My opponent knows that I can sacrifice a knight for both of these pawns, and I have a knight and a rook versus two knights. That's probably what I would go for. All the pawns are on the same side. It's all symmetrical and boring. The extra material should be enough for me to convert with relative ease. I say relative because, of course, there's always tricks to be had. There's always some sort of drawing technique that can be fought for, but relatively, this is a should be a straightforward conversion, I do believe. Um, but man, I really wish they would have spotted it and defended it. Let's go ahead and talk about this game. Because this was a game I did not actually. I liked it at first. Then I realized I had a worse position, and I think we had to come back from it a little bit. And I don't know if it was actually worse or if it was just difficult. Um, so we played Smith Mora because, of course, I do. My opponent says, "Nah, not gonna accept it," which I think is the right call. I think the Smith Mora is objectively a good opening for black to accept. Practically speaking, you get your head taken off. Right? Like, you just have to walk the narrowest line. There's a million tricks. I don't blame anyone for declining the Smith Mora. Although I would like them to accept, I don't get mad at my opponents for declining. I also decline the Mora. So on knight f3, giving them another chance to potentially play d takes c3. This is another thing that I like to say. Don't give up on your ideas. You want to play the Smith Mora accepted? Let them play it here. Right? Don't give up on your ideas. Try to get them to play what you want them to play. Don't just say, it didn't work. Let's just take the pawn. Nah, wait a move. You want them to give them an opportunity to play what you want to play. Don't let your ideas die. And here my opponent says, I'm not going to take it. At this point, it's very clear my opponent is not going to play d takes c ever. At least not until they're more than ready to, and I'll probably have worse position there. And here I decided, now that the knight's out, we'll just have the full center and play a normal game. Probably the best move anyway, but frankly, it's because I knew my opponent wasn't going to take, and I do like having the center. b5, new move. I've probably never seen it. It's not in the Masters database. So now we get to think on our own. What are some things we notice? White has the full center, white has more development, and white is going to castle first. And so I prioritize that with move bishop e3. This move defends our center. It makes it so our bishop can't be attacked, and therefore black can't win any easy tempos. Black has no tempos to win here. There's nothing they can do that generates a threat at all. And so therefore, if I want to, I can pre-move castling. And the only move that stops me from castling, I do believe, is the move Queen A5, which is met with a very simple Bishop D2, and then you guessed it, I can castle. Nothing is stopping me from castling, and this is why I prioritize Bishop D3 over other moves. I want to get castled and say, I'm castled, you're not, let's tear open the position and attack. My opponent develops the bishop, pawn's already guarded, so castles. Knight f6, my opponent's trying to get play around this pawn, and here I was already debating the move e5. But on e5 here, their bishop is pretty active pretty quick. The knight can jump in. They could easily choose to gambit, or simply say, your pawn actually doesn't do anything here. I don't care if you take, that's fine. Which I think is a very reasonable play. So I chose rook e1 to defend the pawn. I don't want to push e5 before I'm ready to. You know what I mean? The threat of playing e5 might be better on the next move. If my opponent does something wrong, then e5 might work. So my opponent played e6. e6, of course, plans to play bishop e7. But what does this do? It softens up the d6 pawn. It also means that it runs into d5, immediately making pawn tension here too, where we rip open the position. Right? This is what it's about. I'm trying to rip open the position as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And here I decided bishop f4, getting a piece out, developing with tempo, because now the move e5, and we have two attackers on this pawn already. Right? We have e5 to prepare this. There's two attackers on the pawn. And if my opponent plays e5, slow down. Remember what I said. We're happy to open up the position. Right? And I can play bishop e3. I can play bishop g5. I can play bishop c1. I can also play bishop takes e5 now that I'm looking at this, or knight takes e5. I think both of those are also pretty good as well. But so by waiting to play e5, we're allowing ourselves to make e5 even better, in my opinion. Opponent plays bishop e7, and this does not stop e5. So I played e5. My opponent says, yep, that's great. Knight d5, they ignored my threat. They ignored it and said, yeah, you go ahead and open everything up here. That's great. But I'm going to take your bishop. And if you don't do that, they're going to take, I'm going to take, and their knight's going to be pretty good here for the rest of the game, and I kind of knew this. Now, in hindsight, I would like to say I think bishop g3 is a better move. Namely because after captures, let's say castles, because it's easy, knight c3 looks very beneficial to me as the white player, because if we see b4, I can take here. This is an awkward pawn. It's isolated and weak. If they take with the bishop, this bishop it clearly doesn't belong here, right? It does belong back here as its job is, being a long-range piece. And if they take with the queen, I'm very happy to play a move like, I don't know, I'm actually quite fine with just like rook c1 and then try to set up future tactics with this. Or this. Both seem very reasonable as well. And so I liked my position a lot more now that I'm looking at this with the move bishop g3. Rather than trying to take here and force the position, this just forces a bunch of captures, and the captures don't benefit me. Because after they take, I have no other option but to take this. They took back, and what's my pawn doing? I can't push it. It's defended, right? They guard it enough. I would like to, but it's guarded enough. They can take my knight, which is a beautiful attacking piece. Their knight is well placed on f4, too. Could be a target, but I also think it's well placed. So I went here trying to trade everything, and this move felt wrong to me. I thought they should have just said, yeah, this is good. I'm going to, sorry, maybe not castle, maybe knight g6 here, and black's pieces don't look so bad. Better yet, now black's pieces don't look so bad, right? I thought that's what they should have went for, but knight c6 ended up being not so bad. I realized this somehow is defended due to the move rook d8. They just keep applying pins, right? And whose king is actually safer here? I have back rank issues. They have back rank mate potentially with the queen and the rook eyeballing this, and that can open up very quickly where that's actually a problem. Meanwhile, there's no back rank issues for black. I can't go pushing the pawn. That's a pawn sacrifice, and I don't really want to take yet because I lose my queen, and I lose my queen. It's very awkward. I have to defend the pawn because now they're threatening to just take it 4 million times, and I can't do a thing about it. So we defend. B4 here, which was a concern. I was planning to meet with the move Queen A4, now pinning their knight. And if they were to take here, now I've opened up the ability to take here because we're not in the pin anymore. The bishop has to move. They can't take. There's bishop captures, and we're very happy. So after a move like this, there was a problem. And so they couldn't go for this, meaning after Queen A4, they couldn't take the knight, and I was still trying to find a move for my opponent in this position. Because even taking here, again, this is still super awkward. We have a lot of activity and a lot of activity. So I think this would have ended quite poorly for black, and B4 was a move I wasn't scared of. That's why I played knight C3, was to defend. I wasn't scared of B4. My opponent chose castle instead, which I think was a much better decision. Queen B3, getting out of the pin and keeping this defended. Knight A5, which is a great move, attacking my queen, saying, hey, buddy, you're going to keep defending this pawn because I still got more attackers. Queen C7, this pawn can be captured. I have H7. I get H7. Is that good? I don't know, but it is threatening to trade these pawns to some degree, right? And I don't know if that's good for me, but I don't lose the pawn outright. We trade them. H6 defending, and now that my queen's out of the pin and this pawn is under so much fire, it is finally time for me to just take it. I have to take, otherwise I lose the pawn. I was expecting a string of trades this way, for what it's worth. This is kind of what I was looking at, or even this, but my opponent chose a slightly different line entirely. I think that's reasonable. Here, if we pause and look at the position, the reason I went for so many trades was I was under pressure the entire opening, right? This pawn was a threat, right? Our D pawn was under constant pressure, and it was hard to defend. My opponent has had all of their pieces be incredibly active, whereas mine have been passive defending. And so trading off their attackers for your defenders means you likely have more mobility options in the future. And therefore, I was still under that mentality here. And in fact, if we compare the two queens, whose queen's better? I like black's better. The black's queen has a lot of vision here, right? Versus my queen, it's, I mean, what are we doing? Secondly, if we start to compare other pieces and how I want to improve them, I'm not a big fan of my knight on c3 anymore. I think it has bigger jobs, right? And so knight e4 looks like a pretty natural square. We control a lot of the center. And I was very happy to put my knight on e4. So the move queen e4 came super naturally to me to just trade the queens and improve my knight, potentially open up the C and D files. Queen b8 is one of the ways you can decline the queen trade. I don't think this is a bad move. I was expecting captures because I also thought it was fine for black. But declining the queen trade, now my queen's better than theirs. So we've improved our pieces. Rook d1. Hey, let's trade pieces. Hey, let's trade pieces. Tempos. This move, again, my opponent is threatening to move the knight somewhere with a discovery on my queen. It improves their knight with tempo. And I didn't want to do that, so this move stopped them. So let's say, for example, they play a move like knight c5. I now have this check. And at the end of the day, remember what I said about trading pieces and I'm okay with it? I was still okay with it here. And they also could take with a knight here, which I think is a better decision. But beside the point, I was okay to trade pieces, which I think is actually where I started to go wrong this game. My opponent improves their knight, brings it to the center. It's a great square. I play a3, guarding any backline mates. I wasn't worried about the pawn, but maybe I should have been. That's nor here nor there, but I didn't want to deal with the back rank mate threat. So they develop here with a double attack, and I say, hey, let's go for some trades. And what I completely overlooked was how strong them winning the b2 pawn was. I just don't think I noticed it. When I played h3, it wasn't a concern. I was more focused on the attacks in the center, and because of it, I basically hung a b2 pawn for no compensation. Pinning the knight, saying, all right, if you want to move the knight, we can enter a rook endgame. I did not spot the tactic ahead of time. I expected to trade rooks and, try to play a knight endgame down a pawn. But they went here, and then I realized if I trade rooks, I'm losing a second pawn because I can't defend it. And if I'm down 2 pawns and they're connected passers on the outside of the board in a knight endgame, I'm not winning that. I'm not drawing that game. I lose. So here I realized I can't trade rooks. Can't do it. And else I realized this pawn's weak. And I know a lot of you guys would be just like, oh, so we defend the pawn. Don't know who you are, but if your default is to defend the pawn like this and hope that you're going to survive, newsflash, you don't. You don't. You don't win games or even draw games by passively defending your position, and I stand by that. And that's part of the reason why I have the opening list I do, is because it prevents playing passive like this. And so we have to look for more. We can't be passive. We can't, go here. There's a fork. We can't go anywhere else. So we can't even move the rook, right? Because going over here just makes no sense. And then they do take the pawn. And so you have to get desperate. You have to get creative. And in doing so, we found the nice move knight e5, which threatens to win a rook. I expected my opponent to see it, but this keeps the rooks on the board. And it maintains the threat of, it makes a threat and keeps the rooks on the board. And so my opponent forced us into creativity, and we found a creative response. And sometimes that's the only way you're going to find that. So a good way of learning chess is, to me, is playing positions where it's like, man, I gotta be lost here, right? Like in this position, white is clearly worse. I am worse. But saying, you know what? I'm just going to play on a few more moves. Let me try to come up with some ideas. Let me find some tricks. Let me find some way of at least let me just continue the game a few more moves. Let me keep playing. I don't want to give up the point so easy. Force yourself into a position where you have an opportunity to find creative moves, because frankly, if if you just blindly play rook takes, you lose. If you just blindly play, defend this, I mean, you're gonna lose. That's all there is. Really force yourself to say, I'm gonna stay active. I'm not gonna trade because I know that loses. Force yourself to say, we're keeping the rooks on, but I'm not. I'm not moving my rook. Like king f1 here is, again, they just take your rook and then they take the pawn. So force yourself to play these awkward positions. You might learn something. It'll improve your creativity, most importantly. And that is one of the ways I like to play chess. And that's one of the reasons why I am such a creative player, is I don't resign when I probably should, is because I get creative and we find moves like this. Although this one is a little bit easier, there are always tricks to go for and things to be had. Anyway, I'm sure I will see you guys in a couple of days. Have a good day.